Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Fondora, and I am the Key Account Manager for Seabourn, as well as your guide through our 2022 World Cruise Extraordinary Horizons presentation. First, before we begin, I'd like to give a special thank you to our travel partners at the CruiseWeb. If you're listening to this presentation, it's probably because you are a client of theirs and you absolutely know how fantastic their travel partners are. They're knowledgeable and they'll be able to answer any questions regarding this world cruise or anything on Seabourn. So make sure that you reach out to them. So let's begin here. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to present to you our recently curated 2022 World Cruise that we're calling Extraordinary Horizons. Now, you may or may not know that we attempted our first World Cruise in the past 7 years last year. Actually, earlier this year in March, and as unfortunately due to the pandemic, we had to cut the World Cruise short. We were expecting to return in 2021 this January, but again, due to the pandemic, we had to cancel it. So there's no doubt that there's going to be a pent-up demand for the 2022 World Cruise, whether it's for the full World Cruise or for the segment. So if you are interested, I encourage you that after you listen to this presentation, you reach out to your travel advisor at the CruiseWeb and talk about reserving your space for the World Cruise. Now, if you haven't sailed with Seabourn before, you got to know that Seabourn is really a fantastic experience. Right now, the Seabourn Sojourn will be the vessel that will be sailing for our world cruise that departs on January the 11th. And it really is a fantastic, fantastic vessel. You'll see here kind of a little picture here of the Seabourn Sojourn. Their sister ship is the Odyssey as well as the Quest. And we are delighted to have her sail. She was actually doing the World Cruise in 2021 and the one in 20 that was paused. So we're glad to have her back and we'll be sailing with the Sojourn again. So the 145-day Extraordinary Horizons voyage will begin in Los Angeles. And for the guests that are on the full World Cruise, that's the whole 145 days, included for them will be an evening at the Ritz-Carlton Marina del Rey. So the evening prior to the guests embarking on January the 11th, our new company president, Josh Leibowitz, will be there for a grand celebration, and it'll be kind of a send-off because if you're going to be on board for 145 days, you absolutely want to know who you're going to be sailing with. So that way you know who you're going to have dinner with and who you may want to avoid on the 145 days. So this world cruise will take us to 27,579 nautical miles, 5 different continents, 28 countries, 20 overnights, and that's very important because we're not just arriving at a port in the morning and leaving in the early afternoon. I mean, in some of these ports, as you see here, 20 of them, we're actually doing an overnight. Wherever there is a good nightlife, the ship will overnight. We also have 2 crossings on the equator and through the equator and 3 international dateline crossings. So some of these may be already on your bucket list that you may want to kind of check off here, including the dateline as well as crossing the equator, and you'll have the opportunity to do that multiple times on this world cruise voyage. Now, I can tell you that day after day, you will wake up and experience some incredible ports of call on this voyage. Really, for us, the big thing is that you want to be able to just sit back and relax, enjoy the voyage, enjoy the segments, because although there is 145 days, we do have shorter segments that are available for you if you're interested, but we can talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. So as we set sail from Los Angeles, one of the longer voyages at sea will be getting to Hawaii. So of course, who does not want to visit Hawaii? We have some fantastic opportunities in Hawaii to visit the Big Island. You also have Kauai, Maui. There will be an overnight in Honolulu, of course, when you're visiting Hawaii. So you'll have a couple days at sea and then you'll have a fantastic overnight in Honolulu and be able to enjoy that port of call. As we continue to sail sail and cross the international date line from afar, you may not see it this clearly, but you'll have a good opportunity to see Samoa and Tonga that we'll also be visiting on the World Cruise, and this is in Southeast Pacific. As we continue on, we'll be sailing to New Zealand, and I can tell you that New Zealand and of course Australia are in my bucket list. And if there's somebody that's going to be a stowaway for this part of the voyage, it may just be me if you hear this an employee on board that shouldn't be. But getting down to Australia, we'll have a great opportunity to visit Auckland. We'll have an overnight actually in Auckland, which, as many of you may know, is called the City of Sails. And here we'll be able to offer an overnight for our guests so you can enjoy the beauty that is Auckland. And you'll be able to go back and tell your friends and family about that experience. Moving on, of course, from the beautiful New Zealand will be the beautiful continent of Australia, and a trip to the South Pacific is not complete until you sail here through the Sydney Harbor. So as you're sailing in, you'll see here, you'll get to see from a distance the silhouette shape in the horizon, and that will be the announcement that we're arriving into Sydney Harbor. And of course, as you see there, that is the Sydney Opera House. We will, of course, spend an overnight here in Sydney for our guests to be able to explore. It's one of the places that you have to visit and you have to stay. It's just a spectacular city, and again, it is on my bucket list. If you're in Australia, you have to also visit the Great Barrier Reef, and we will have 2 days in Cairns for the Great Barrier Reef. And as you know, this is a UNESCO Heritage World Site, as well as the Daintree National Park in Darwin. So we'll have an opportunity to visit there on this particular trip. And then we'll continue sailing up the Pacific to the Indian Ocean, and we'll be visiting ports in Indonesia. We will also visit the Philippine archipelago. We'll have an opportunity, and you'll have an overnight in Manila. But here you'll also see some incredible scenery, some wildlife sailing here. We're also visiting a port called Puerto Princesa in the Philippines. And if you notice, I speak Spanish, so that's why I was able to say it very clearly. But what I didn't know about Puerto Princesa is that there's an adventure that we can offer. It's the world's longest underground river. And it used to be a Spanish colony, so you'll get to see a lot of the Spanish influence here on this port. As we continue on sailing north, we will then encounter Taipei, so you'll have an opportunity to visit Taiwan, and then we'll move up to the marvels of Japan, Korea, and China. In these itineraries in particular, in China, we include Amami, Japan. So you'll see the coral reefs as well as Okinawa. And Okinawa has the Shirai Moon Gates, which are also part of the UNESCO World Heritage, and we visit those. And we'll talk a little bit about UNESCO as we continue on in the presentation. We also are visiting Nagasaki and Hiroshima. There you will be able to visit, for example, Memorial Peace Park. We'll be overnighting in Busan, Korea, as well as in Nagasaki. And again, just beautiful itinerary for our guests. And as we continue on, we will have 3 full days in Shanghai. So I think that's very important for you to know. You'll be able to experience the city of Shanghai. It's also a vibrant city. It's a big city, and we'll have 3 full days there. Continuing on, we will be sailing down south then, heading towards Southeast Asia, Halong Bay. We'll be visiting Hong Kong, Ho Chi Minh City, as well as Bangkok. And Singapore, so you'll get to experience the real Southeast Asia. Here in Koh Kood, Thailand, there's a special treat for you. Now, if you've been on Seabourn before, you know that we have the caviar and the surf. And that is something that we do in the Caribbean, but we also do it when we are in Asia, right here in Koh Kood Beach. And basically, it's just like you see on the screen. We'll have our crew that comes down, and they'll be wearing their attire that they'd normally be wearing on board the ship. They're going to jump right into the water with you. We'll set up a nice surfboard, and we'll have caviar and champagne available for our guests with a beautiful beach party. And that is a signature on Seabourn event. event. So if you haven't done it, you absolutely need to make sure that you participate in our beach party. As we move on, you'll see that we start sailing westbound again, and westbound here we'll have stops in Kuala Lumpur. We'll also have stops in Georgetown, continuing through Phuket and through the Indian Ocean, and we will eventually make our way to Sri Lanka, as well as the Maldives. Now, the Maldives are on a lot of people's bucket lists. It's not very easy to get to, but when you're sailing on the World Cruise, you'll have that opportunity to visit the Maldives. As we continue sailing west, or I should say, yes, westbound, we will sail through the Arabian and the Red Sea, and we'll be able to visit some of the most impressive and unforgettable sites of antiquity really in the world. And for the first time in 8 years, Seabourn will invite our guests to witness Egypt's majestic legacy. We're spending 2 days in Luxor, and this will provide the opportunity for our guests to explore the temples, as well as the Valley of the Kings and Queens. So this will be towards the end of our world cruise as we're sailing northbound, ultimately headed to Greece, which will be Athens or Piraeus, which will be the final destination. But before we get there, we'll also be making a stop in Jordan. And Jordan, you'll be able to visit the city of Petra, one of the 7 wonders of the world. As we continue to sail up towards through the past the Suez Canal and continue northward, we'll basically get to we'll be able to visit Ephesus as well. I should mention that in Turkey, we'll have a great opportunity at Ephesus. We're also going to be visiting Haifa in Israel, which is, as you know, the gateway to the Holy Land, where you'll be able to visit Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Galilee, or the Sea of Galilee. All that will be waiting for you on our Seabourn World Cruise. As we continue sailing northwards and sailing towards Athens, you'll get to see when we arrive in Piraeus, of course, you'll see the famous Pantheon that stands high atop of modern Athens. So really in this brief time that we've had, and I know that we, there'll be so many other ports that we just can't get to, but there'll be, we've done 145 days basically in this quick presentation. I just wanted to highlight a few of the ports that you will be seeing and you will be experiencing. As I mentioned earlier, if you do not have the interest for the full 145 days, that's not a problem because we do have shorter segments. The segments will range anywhere from 22 to 89 days, and it basically will allow you to select one or more of the itineraries that maybe you may want to focus on. For me in particular, it would probably be the Los Angeles to Taipei or Los Angeles to Sydney itinerary because Australia is on my bucket list. But if you've been there, then you can continue on. You see Sydney to Singapore. You also have Sydney to Taipei to Athens, so you can do that 73-day, which is the second part of the actual world cruise. We talked about UNESCO quickly, and I can tell you that we are the official cruise partner of UNESCO. And what that means is that we're not just arriving at some of these ports and having normal shore excursions. I mean, these are curated excursions, particularly from UNESCO. So if we visit, we'll have maybe the curator, for example, of a museum come, we'll visit, our guests will visit some of these sites before the general public or after the general public as well. It's very important for us to be a part, to continue this partnership with UNESCO that we've had for so many years. We just signed a contract with them and it extended for the next 5 years. So we will be the official partner for UNESCO for the next 5 years moving forward. We talked about overnights. Here are the 20 overnights that you see, and some of them are more than one night, as I mentioned in the presentation. So again, the ship is staying overnight primarily in the itineraries that make sense for us to stay overnight, where there's some type of nightlife where you can actually get off of the ship, enjoy the nightlife, and then come back to the vessel later on in the evening. So for our full World Cruise guests, we do have a few exclusives. We do offer the Gala Bon Voyage dinner with our president, Josh Leibowitz, and that will be on the Marina Del Rey, the Marina Del Rey Ritz-Carlton in Los Angeles, the night before disembarking on January the 11th. We'll also offer 3 shore events for our full World Cruise guests. We will have a Seabourn exclusive evening in Ephesus. And for this, I do know that when we do the segment that includes Ephesus will also participate in the evening there, that event, that exclusive. And we talked about the World Cruise President event, which is at the beginning of the voyage. And then you'll also, of course, have special World Cruise pillow gifts throughout your journey. Now, let's talk about the vessel that you'll be sailing on. So you will be on the Seabourn Sojourn, which you see here. Some general information: 229 suites, 458 guests, about 650 feet in length. And it is definitely on the smaller side. We're probably one of the smaller ultra luxury vessels in the industry, and we love that because we're able to navigate and visit some of the ports where the big ships just don't have access. So here's our entire fleet, and you'll see that we have the newest fleet in the ultra luxury market, which means that our oldest vessel was built in 2009, so she is still very, very new. And then we followed that up with the Sojourn and the Quest. Now those 3 ships are identical. If you've been on any one of those 3 ships and then you come back again, they're the same. The deck plan is the same. You will find that the public rooms are in the same area, so you won't get lost or you won't be confused. You'll be able to just come back. You'll be coming back home, is what we like to say. 90% of these 3 vessels have verandas, and of course, if you're going to be on a veranda, you probably want to take advantage of the open air, and you want to book your veranda suites. We have from veranda V1 up until veranda V6. And then we also have some suites that we'll talk about. The more recent additions to our fleet have been the Encore and the Ovation, and those are just a bit larger with 300 suites, 600 guest capacity. Those vessels are 100% veranda. We're currently building the Seabourn Venture, which will be our first expedition ship. So we're very excited about that. Initially, she was due to debut in July of next year, but she has been pushed back to December because of the pandemic. She's being built in Italy. So they took about a 3-month hiatus for their quarantine. So it pushed us back a little bit, but she will be sailing and we will have new and different itineraries for the Venture. And then we also have a new expedition vessel where we cut the steel about a month ago to begin construction on that vessel. So we're very excited. She does not have a name yet. We typically call them future borns, but she will be identical to the Venture with 132 suites and all ocean view verandas. So if you're familiar with Seabourn, you may know that we are an inclusive product. So tipping is never required. Tipping is included for our guests. All of our suites are oceanfront. The vast majority do have verandas. We curate these fantastic itineraries, not just for the World Cruise, but everywhere else. If you're interested in another part of the world or another time, we're able to offer. We visit all 7 continents. So anything from the Arctic to Antarctica to Asia to South America, we're able to accommodate any request, any place in the world our ships are able to visit. We do offer complimentary premium spirits. So it's an open bar concept. So premium spirits are available at the spa, as well as in your suite. You will have 2 spirits that will be available to you, and they will also be replenished. So I tend to like vodka myself, and Grey Goose is my favorite. So when I sail, I've had the 2 bottles of Grey Goose, and frankly, maybe at 145 days, you may drink the whole 2 bottles, but you typically are outside enjoying a cocktail with some of the other guests. Some of our partnerships that we'll talk about in a minute are with Chef Thomas Keller. All of our dining venues are included, Dr. Andrew Weil, as well as Sir Tim Rice. and we'll talk a little bit about them. This is our typical oceanfront luxurious suite. So this is actually one of the signature suites. So this is one of the larger ones. So this is close to 1,000 square feet. But what you'll also want to know is that our typical veranda suites are about 300 square feet plus veranda. So it's quite large when you're thinking about, being on board for this amount of time. Our suites are pretty large, and the bathrooms on the veranda suites are also fantastic because we have double sinks. We also have a separate tub and shower. We use our bath amenities are molten brown, and we've been using that for quite some time. So you'll be cruising in elegance. One thing that I love about Seabourn is it does feel like a private club. Now, I live in Florida, and I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to visit multiple country clubs and yacht clubs. And that feeling, that relaxed, laid back feeling is what you'll experience on board Seabourn. I think I dare to say that we're a little bit less stuffy than some of the other luxury cruise lines. This particular picture here that you're seeing is that kind of on the right hand side there, that wall, that is the Seabourn Square. Another thing I love about Seabourn is that we don't have a front desk. So everything is taken care of in the Seabourn Square, which is if you have if you want to do a shore, if you want to purchase a shore excursion, if you want to set up your internet, you would come here to what we consider the living room of the ship. Here you have the Seabourn Square where you'll find our crew, but you'll also find a coffee bar, a gelato bar. You'll find our boutique. You'll also see a library here in this area. You also have access to the aft part of the ship. So I was on in December for a Caribbean cruise, and although we do not allow smoking on board or inside the ship, there are a few areas outside that we will allow smoking, and one of them is behind here, this part of the ship. We talked about tipping is never expected, nor is it ever required. I mean, our crew are fantastic. The reason that we have such a high repeat factor, I'd like to take credit for getting you on, but really the reason that you come back is because of the crew. The crew is fantastic. They know your name. They know your preferred drink. I mean, they really do make a conscious effort to ensure that you feel as if you are your personal yacht for whatever time you're sailing with us. We talked about our partnership. Our famous partnership is with Chef Thomas Keller. Now, many of you, especially if you're a foodie, you know who Chef Thomas Keller is. We do have the Thomas Keller Grill restaurant on board all 5 of our vessels. The one that you're seeing now is what your Thomas Keller will look like on the Sojourn, the Odyssey, the Sojourn, the Quest, and the Odyssey. Since they're a bit smaller, the Thomas Keller restaurant is a bit smaller, as you see here. Actually, this is the exact one. It's a little bit bigger on the Ovation and on the Encore because the ships are bigger. But we only require reservations here for the Thomas Keller Grill. So keep that in mind. There is no additional charge. Because we're going to be sailing, at least for the World Cruise, you're going to have so many days at 145 days. If you take the full World Cruise, typically every 7 days is when we will the guests will be able to visit the Thomas Keller Grill. So if you count, 7, 14, 21, 28, you'll have multiple opportunities to dine at the Thomas Keller Grill if you're taking the full 145 days. If health and wellness is what's on your mind, we again have a fantastic spa, not just the traditional massages, but we also have a mindful living program that was put together by Dr. Andrew Weil, who is at the forefront really of healthy living and mindful living. So if you love the spa experience, you will absolutely love Seabourn, and you will love our spa. We also have a few suites called Penthouse Spa Suites. Now, I don't know if they're available because there's only about 7 of them, but these suites are found inside the spa. So you have to walk into the spa and you take some stairs, or actually on this vessel, there will be stairs to take you up to your suite. Those are penthouse suites, so they're a little bit larger than the standard penthouses, but you will have access to this serene area that you see here. You'll also, typically for this area, there is an additional cost, but guests staying at the spa suites, the penthouse spa suites, will have this area complimentary for them. You know, when I sailed this past December, I went to our shows and thinking, well, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to like the show. They were fantastic. We had 5 singers on board the Sojourn, which happened to be the voyage, the sailing I was on, and all 5 of them were different in their own way, and they were fantastic. I had some friends that sailed with me, and they were a bit reluctant really to do a show on a small ship, but they were blown away by the talent of our singers. And really at the end, we also had an evening with Sir Tim Rice, and that was fantastic. And as many of you know who Sir Tim Rice is, I mean, he's the lyricist for The Lion King, Evita, you name it, Jesus Christ Superstar, whatever is um, um, you know, gosh, I'm at a loss for words here, but every famous musical basically has Sir Tim Rice's fingerprints all over it on the lyrics side. So we do have an evening with Sir Tim Rice, and we probably will have multiple ones when we're sailing on our full world cruise. So this is just some information about our world cruise, our 145-day world cruise. As I mentioned, we do also have shorter segments, so I encourage you to speak with your travel advisor at the Cruise Web. It really has been a pleasure to escort you, or at least quickly escort you, and preview our Extraordinary Horizons for 2022. You know, we remain committed to moving forward during this pandemic. We remain committed to sailing and to just be going back to normal, or you know, really, you know, I think we're all tired of being home. And that is part of the reason why I say if a world cruise or if any of these destinations are on your list, now is the time for you to take advantage of it. I mean, who would have imagined that a little invisible virus would have taken down the entire country, entire world, I should say. So now is absolutely the time that you want to consider um, um, checking things off of your bucket list. So as we have been doing this webinar, I did get a few questions, and one of the questions that I got was, can back-to-back World Cruise segments be reserved in the same suite? And yes, if you are sailing on the World Cruise, you can put down a deposit for the 2023 World Cruise and actually reserve your suite when you're sailing. So keep that in mind, particularly if you love the suite that you're in. Another question here is about visas. So we do help provide visas for US and Canadian passport holders. So we will help in that process along with your travel advisor at the Cruise Web. See, another question here is, I mentioned season lists. So any suggestions for packing? You know, most of the voyage will be warm, but I believe that when you get up to Japan and Korea, that'll be around the late February, March timeframe. It may be cool, so you may want to consider bringing maybe a sweater or a jacket, particularly if you're going to go out and do the excursions. I would absolutely, the way that the weather has been going, I would probably suggest that maybe a couple weeks before you get on board, that you recheck what is the expected temperature. I know it's 145 days, so you may not have the temperature for February, March, but you can have an indication it will be cooler the further north that we sail. And then finally, I have another question here about the Thomas Keller Grill, which is what I mentioned earlier. Typically every 7 days, we will allow the guests to reserve at the Thomas Keller Grill. So if you're on for the full World Cruise voyage, just consider that as every 7 days you can make your reservation. As a matter of fact, you can make your reservations when your travel advisor calls into our reservation here in Seattle to be able to reserve if you have a special anniversary or a special birthday during the course of this voyage of this world cruise. We'll be able to accommodate that for you. So I hope that I answered some of your questions at least, and I got you a bit excited about our world cruise. Our travel partners here at the Cruise Web are waiting for your call, so please make sure that you give them a call and you ask all the questions, and we'd love to welcome you on board the Seabourn Sojourn. Thank you. Bye-bye.